Welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. My name is Danny Burke, and seeing as I'm the resident creepy video maker on this channel, it seemed only right that I be presenting our top 10 terrifying movies that you shouldn't watch alone. Now, we've made top 10 lists about scary movies before, as you can see up here floating above me, but for this one I want to talk about 10 movies that scare you during and after you watch them. Now, Alien, that's an example of a scary film, but it's set in space, so you can finish it and go to bed without being too scared if the alien is going to get you. But these movies we're going to talk about are different. They're set in your homes, they're set in your bedrooms, and some of them even seem like they can happen to you. So it might be best to have someone next to you when you do sit down to watch them. Hold on tight, grab your best friend, and let's jump into our top 10 with The Ring. Now, there are lots of scary things in this movie, both the Japanese and American versions. Seeing that demon girl standing in front of that well is enough to send shivers down anyone's spine, but for most people, the scariest thing in this movie is the sight of her climbing out of the TV. Who can forget that scene? Now, most of us watch horror movies safe in the knowledge that the terrifying things happening are behind a TV screen and they can't hurt us, it's fine. Then you watch The Ring and it's like, wait, hold on a second, these scary things are now climbing into the real world. That's terrifying. You will definitely need a friend to remind you that the demon girl might be able to climb out of the movie TV, but she won't be able to climb out of your TV. Probably. I'm just saying probably. You may also need your friend around after the movie. After I saw this for the first time, I did not trust TV static for months. I still don't really. Alright, moving on now, we have a movie that I haven't personally seen, but when I told people I was making this video, they said I just have to put it in. At number 9, it's the Babadook. Now, fans of this movie point out that the Babadook is one of the most unsettling movies in recent years. It's all about a woman and her son being mentally tortured by an evil entity known as the Babadook, a monster from one of the boys' storybooks. It's a slow building thriller with a lot of heightened tension and suspense, with the mother slowly descending into absolute madness. Now, it would be easier to watch it and carry on like normal if it wasn't for one thing about the Babadook. He only haunts those that become aware of him. So the mother was totally fine and safe until she heard about him. And I was totally fine until I heard about him. And you guys watching this were totally fine until... Just make sure you watch this with your friend, and good luck. Coming in at number 8 now, we have The Blair Witch Project, one of my personal all-time favourite horror movies. Now, when this came out back in 1999, it was called one of the most original horror movies of all time. At the beginning of the movie, we are told that what we're about to watch is actual footage from 3 student filmmakers before they went missing in the woods. And from that moment onwards, it doesn't feel like a horror movie anymore, it feels like horror real life. The production of this movie was actually less than $30,000. That's very cheap for a movie, and to be honest, it does look kinda cheap in some parts, but that's also what makes it so scary. You have to actually remind yourself you're not watching real footage, unless it was real the whole time. That's a scary thought. Either way, especially in this day and age of everyone filming every single trip they go on, this movie is easier to watch when you're not totally alone. Just don't do it in the woods. Next up at number 7, we have Dawn of the Dead. Now, this movie came out in 1978 and has remained one of the most iconic zombie movies ever since. For that reason, it kind of represents the movie version of a question that a lot of people ask themselves at some point in their lives. What would I do if the world as we know it came to an end in a zombie apocalypse? Just like Stefan and Francine in the movie, your plan will probably involve having someone else with you. Nobody ever pictures themselves just taking on the zombie hordes that you see in Dawn of the Dead by themselves. That would be very difficult. You want someone next to you to have your back, and you want them to preferably not be a zombie. This movie, just like an actual zombie apocalypse, you can probably get through it by yourself, but it's a lot easier if you have a friend with you. And now, guys, we have a movie that might have given an American state and a gardening tool a bit of a bad name forever. At number 6 is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This 1974 American movie followed Sally and her friends as they tried to get away from the twisted serial killer known as Leatherface, the guy who wears people's faces on his face. Nice. It cuts pretty close to the bone with how real parts of it feel. You don't feel like you're watching some Hollywood actors and actresses who are covered in thick makeup and fake blood, who have someone fanning them in between takes. These characters in this movie look a real sweaty, dirty, exhausted mess. To be honest, they look like And you totally would if you were trying to run from a crazy man with a chainsaw who has been chopping up everyone you know. It also feels real because it's not about some supernatural zombie or demon which you can easily put to the back of your mind as not real. This movie is about a human, just like me or you, doing horrible things with a chainsaw, and that's not so easy to dismiss. Now eventually in the movie Sally does manage to escape, but only with the help of a kind stranger, so just in case Leatherface does show up at your home while you're watching this movie, it might be best to have someone with you. Next up at number 5, we have what some people are calling the greatest horror movie of all time. It's The Shining. Now if you think of scary stuff from horror movies people watch these days, there's a good chance The Shining did it first and The Shining did it better. Jack Nicholson plays, quite helpfully, a character called Jack, a father who descends into madness as his family are tormented by an empty hotel's dark secrets. Sometimes you're not sure if what you're seeing is the hotel or if it's Jack going insane, but either way, this movie took psychological horror to a whole new level upon its release back in 1980. Just like a real slip into madness, when you're watching The Shining, you're really not sure what to believe and what is real. People in general, just like Jack, go absolutely insane if they can't figure out where reality stops and imagination begins, and as the viewer, we're dragged right along with him, and it leaves us with a sort of hollow and vaguely unsettling feeling at the end. It's definitely nice to have someone next to you for when that feeling comes. Personally, I'd want to watch it with Jack Nicholson himself, but he never returns my calls anymore. Shame. Moving on to our number 4 now, we have the Japanese-American cult classic, The Grudge. Now this movie is all about angry and sad ghosts who take out their unfinished business on an American nurse who has come to work in Tokyo. It covers a lot of what you want from a movie like this. Creepy kid, check. Long-haired creepy woman, check. And enough jump scares to kill a horse. It made millions of people scared to wash their own hair in case a hand crawled out from their own skull. But perhaps what scares people the most when they watch this is that the grudge isn't a grudge against the person who deserves it, the person who killed the ghost before they died, you know. It's a grudge against some innocent, totally random stranger who actually just wants to help. So nobody is safe, not even you. In case the grudge ends up in your home, you might want a few friends next to you to help you take out that creepy kid. Usually it takes about 5 grown adults to stop one scary ghost kid. Just saying. Alright, next up we have a movie that you might know better by the name of its main character, and number 3 is Child's Play, featuring Chucky. Chucky is a voodoo doll imbued with the spirit of a serial killer. That's all you really need to know about this movie. Before this movie came out, kids were scared of scary toys. After though, every toy was a suspect. Chucky continues where the serial killer left off and starts bumping people off in gruesome ways as he tries to possess 6-year-old Andy. But it's not just 6-year-olds that have dolls that are scared by this. But the thing is, it's not just 6-year-olds with dolls that are scared by this, because as you watch this, you realise that pretty much every house out there has some sort of scary doll in it. It might be a doll that's being played with by your younger brother or sister, or maybe it's an old one that used to belong to one of your parents and now it's sitting in the attic. But either way, seeing a serial killer doll like Chucky run around slaughtering people will make you trust nothing, absolutely nothing, except the person you're watching this movie with. You're definitely going to need 2 of you when you go upstairs to face that doll. Next up now we have a movie that I watched twice when I was a teenager and I will probably never watch again. It's etched into my memory and it won't go away. And number 2 is The Exorcist. It came out in 1973, but most horror movies simply haven't been able to beat it. It's a movie about a normal person in a normal bedroom in a normal house that gets possessed by an evil demon, and most people who watch this movie for the first time are a normal person in a normal bedroom in a normal house, and it really does help to have someone next to you to remind you that it's probably not going to happen to you. It's honestly one of the most terrifying horror movies of all time, set in one of the most familiar, relatable settings I can even think of. I can't stop thinking of that scene, you know, where she twists her head the whole way around. Actually terrifying. I am scared right now. If you haven't seen The Exorcist, then firstly don't, just don't do it, turn around and walk away. But if you really want to, make sure you watch it with a good friend, especially one that isn't possessed by a demon. And finally, we have the 1984 classic that has made millions of children all over the world afraid to fall asleep, and number 1 is Nightmare on Elm Street. Just like some of the other movies on our list, Nightmare on Elm Street is terrifying because it strikes at two things that most of us can relate to: living in a neighborhood and dreaming when we fall asleep. So when serial killer Freddy Krueger brings terror to both of those for the kids on Elm Street, it's going to leave you a little bit shaken up. Having a friend to watch this movie with will help for the scary parts, especially when you see Freddy's face. I hate those bits, but it will also mean that you can pause the movie to get a snack or maybe go to the bathroom without being absolutely terrified of seeing Freddy standing out there in the street. But even having a friend can only help you so much with this movie, because the truth is, if I'm honest, you can hide from Freddy as long as you want and surround yourself with all your friends, but eventually your eyelids will start to feel heavy, your head will start to drop, and you will fall asleep. And that's where Freddy will be waiting for you, and none of your friends can help you then. Yeah. That was, didn't mean to be that scary. Sorry guys. Well, I actually scared myself a little bit. Seems like a good place to wrap things up, don't you guys think? Well guys, horror movies can tear opinions apart in the comments section like a zombie tears apart its victims. Not sure if that analogy really works, but the point is, I might well have missed one of your favourite horror movies off this list that you watched with your friends, and if I did, then please let me know down below. Do make sure to subscribe for all our daily videos on this channel, and you can follow me, Danny Berg, on Instagram somewhere down there. Take care guys, and don't be too scared, just a little bit.